What's going out there, good people? What's going on out there, good people? What's going on? What's going on? This is Jay Jones. It is what it is. Jimmy J. Jimmy J. Jay Jones is in the building, but Jimmy J has taken over the show. Um, I appreciate y'all. I need y'all to go out there and share. Yeah, I'm about 5 minutes late, but we're going to make sure this show ends up 5 minutes early. So we're going to make sure we take care of that. Today I got the hammer. Hammer don't hurt him. Hammer don't hurt him. It's the reason why I got this hammer, y'all. It's the reason why I got this hammer. It's the reason why I got this hammer. We're going to take care of business today. Hammer don't hurt him. It is what it is. Please share. I got some things I got to talk about today. Get off my chest today. I know I say this every single week, every Friday. It sounds like I may be prepared some Fridays I'm not prepared. But I got something on my chest I got to get off. That's very, very important. So I need y'all to share. I don't start talking until the 5 minute time period is over. So I'm asking y'all, I'm begging y'all, let me go ahead and make sure I ain't got no comments going on. I'm asking y'all, begging y'all, pleading y'all to go out there and share. Let everybody know that the broadcast is going on. The broadcast is live and in full cover. It will not be televised, as they used to say back in the day. The revolution will not be televised, but a revolution is needed in our community. And so I'm asking y'all, I'm begging y'all. I see we got about 5-6 people in this mission. If y'all don't want to hear the word, make sure we share. Let everybody out there in the world know we getting ready to have a candid conversation about what's going on. It is what it is. It is what it is, y'all. And we got to stop and we got to start putting the messages out there that we can change society and make society a much better place. So I'm asking y'all, begging y'all, I know y'all want to hear candid conversations. I know y'all want to hear conversations that are peaceful and we're not disrupting the flow of stroll or whatever you want to call it in the program. I know y'all want that, but sometimes you have to interrupt the system to make sure the system is listening to what you got to offer. And what I learned, I'm going to tell you right now before my minute is up, before we really start talking, what I learned is there's more people watching me than I even thought about. And so I don't really care about what people look at me when I'm live. I respect that. I respect those who are man enough, woman enough to catch me live and respond to me while you can see me in living color and not wait till it rebroadcast once or twice. Because we at ATR, we make sure this thing gets rebroadcast more than one time because it's so important that we make sure the message is clear, the message gets out there in the world. And so, I'm on my 20 seconds before I got to end my discussion, and I want to make sure it's understood. ATR ain't going nowhere. We're going to get live in full color. We're going to be bigger and better because it's time to get the message out there as far as what African Americans, minorities are going through in this world, and we got to make sure we're getting the message out to you. And so with that, with the 5, the 4, the 3, the 2, the 1, yes, this is Jimmy J coming to you live in full color. I appreciate those people who took the time to be with me. It is what it is, and we've been talking about what if scenarios, and what if scenarios are very important to me because what if scenarios change the culture, change the conversation, change the dialect among those people who I'm trying to get the message out to. And so today, my what if subject is today. Recently I attended a Black Chamber event and I attended the regular chamber event. And so I said Black Chamber event first because the chamber is called the Black Chamber. Now you have the Savannah Chatham Area Chamber, which is not the White Chamber. It's just the Savannah Area Chamber. And so it's host to anybody who wants to do business in our community. Chatham County, Savannah, Georgia, stand up. And so we had a good event yesterday. They had close to, I can say about 200-300 people there. You had the mayor there. You had city council people there. You had Thunderbolt city council people there. You had a multitude of different people there at that show, at that function. And so I looked at it from the economics. It's economics, the economics drive among us as people. It was a great showing of communication. And I didn't see a lot of people talk about color at that meeting. Now, some conversations could have been about color. Some conversations could have about control, privilege, and all that good stuff like that. But the conversations I had was having a good time eating oysters, having a good time talking to white friends, black friends, everybody else out there under the sun. And I know I'm going to get executed for this conversation because this conversation is going to say, hey, why aren't we taking the time to invest in the chamber that gets money proceeds from Chatham County and the city of Savannah. Now I've repeated this. I've repeated this and said this several times. It's so important for us to make sure we get involved in that chamber as a business. Not as a black business, not as a white business, not a Puerto Rican, Chinese, woman or man business, old, young, whatever, as a business. If you own a business and you want to make some kind of profiteering out of what goes on in Chatham County, then you should be investing in the Savannah Area Chamber. The membership is $350. It's not exclusive to anybody. All you got to do is say you own a business and make sure you pay the dues and sign up for it. And they'll send you a plethora of information to make sure that your business can survive within this community market. Now, if you would have came to it and I saw black people, white people, all kind of people at this event, and what they did was they socialized, intermingled with all kind of other people under the sun. And it was so important because guess what? Business ideas were exchanged. And I don't think a lot of people looked at even the color as far as the thing is concerned. Now, I know somebody's mad at me and somebody will say that. No, I'm not. And somebody will say that. And John McMaster's, you got way more money. You got 10 times the money I got. So why don't you go ahead and buy your own membership because I know you can afford it. But it is so important that we actually go ahead and start looking at it. You got to destabilize it. That's the chamber that makes a press, hardcore press to our elected officials. We have 8 elected officials now. We'll have 9 starting next year. That these are elected officials who represent us. Now, with that being said, what if I told you that next week is qualifying and we still have some opportunities and openings within the state representatives and state Senate seats across the state of Georgia that still have not seen representation that's taken a chance to challenge the status quo within our current structure. And so it's so important that we make sure that we have a person running in every election on both sides of the fence, because we cannot complain about the problems that exist in our community if we're not willing to step forward and challenge that system. And that's that same conversation I say with the chamber. So y'all can get mad, y'all can say whatever y'all want, but you can't challenge the system in the chamber if you're not at the table. And I quote you from a person who won their election about a couple of years ago. You know, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so I know that person has made sure that other people have been excluded to the table, but I'm not going to cover that conversation today. I'm here to talk about the what-if scenarios. And so when we go into the what-if scenarios, what if I told you if we willingly made sure somebody was on the ballot, Democrat or Republican? I said that. Democrat or Republican, challenge the status quo to make sure that privilege does not stay in existence. Because I'm going to tell you something. Privilege don't only stay in existence from one political party. Privilege stays in existence from both political parties. The Democrats and Republicans ensure privilege stays in position. And the reason why privilege stays in power is because what to happen is if they're not elected into that position, they buy people from another party to be elected in that position. So, I'm sorry, y'all. Whoa. My hand got jittery right there. Sometimes we got to make sure that we connect ourselves with politicians who actually are moving the narrative forward. Now, watch this. Politics goes from the local to the county and the city to the state, to the federal. We got to stop thinking about federal politics all the time. President is not the only person. By the time president puts law out there, if we don't have people on the local level, on the state level, and even in those federal levels that's jurisdictionally binded to us like a congressional district seat, then we can't complain about why we're not getting anything down here. And so the piece of the pie only flows down here to our system, because when people run for public office, they can make sure that they can get that piece of the pie to make it down here. When local people run for public office, they can make sure that that piece of pie is divided amongst us. The reason why we don't get some time is because we're not willing to get out there and challenge those seats to make sure we have people to run for office. And I said that plug. I'm going to stop talking about that after next week, because next week is qualifying for the state of Georgia. If you have an interest to run for public office, if you have an opportunity to be able to serve the people, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, if you have a heart of gold for people, I encourage you to step out your gate and run for public office. Don't worry about who's running on ticket. If you think you can do better for our government, you get on that ballot and you run for yourself. And so I said my public announcement. I'm done with that piece right there. The what if scenario is, guess what? Because if we don't step to the plate and we don't qualify next week, then guess what? You're going to be I'm a part of the problem. And John, to answer your question, how does the chamber divide the pie? They divide the pie based on people who standing there watching the knife, how it gets cut. And if there's nobody standing there to watch the knife get cut, and yes, it might take 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 10 years to make sure that that pie is cut up, divided equally amongst us. You expect people to do right by you, and you're not at the table to hold them accountable, then you can't expect anything further. And so the chamber pie is not divided equally. I'll be the first one to admit it, but they do divide it based on those people who are showing up to that chamber meeting and who are showing up to make sure that that pie is actually equally given out there. And if we're not showing up at the chamber to divide that pie, then we're not going to get anything for any equitable reason for any other community out there. And watch this. We have so many members who join every single year, and if we're not willing to make sure we stand up for the gate, I don't expect nobody to give anything to anybody if you're not there to make sure you challenge the system. And see, that's what we get wrong at. We just expect everybody's supposed to be upright and forth going and make sure they give everything wholeheartedly to everybody. We have to make sure that we're doing right. And yes, Howard, you spoke of the chamber. Where were you going to discuss the experience of the black chamber? I mean, I don't have a problem talking about my experience with the black chamber. I've been trying to become a member in the upper echelon of the black chamber. I've been trying to become more involved in the black chamber. And in recent months, last month, I actually hosted with the black chamber. So I'm trying to make sure that every chamber that's equitably fair out there gets this opportunity. And my thing is this. I'm not here to talk about the black chamber because I'm not a part of the black chamber right now. I was a former member of the black chamber. I am currently now a member of the chamber. And so that's the discussion I'm going to have is about the actual chamber that's out there right now, the Savannah area chamber. And I'm going to make sure that I join it. I'm going to participate and I'm going to hold them accountable. I can't get what I want from the legislative body the last minute. So what I plan on doing is making sure going into the legislative session next year, I'm not going to just challenge the chamber, but I'm going to challenge all those elected officials who are state reps and state senators, and all those private conversations I have with them, I'm going to turn out to make them public conversations. And that's how I'm going to challenge the narrative. That's how I'm going to challenge the system. I'm going to hold those people accountable. And because it's my show and I can mention whatever I want on my show. I don't go to Spivey law firm to mention anything. So on my show, I can talk about what I choose to talk about on my show. And so that's why I mentioned it. And so with that being said, the next focus to be conversating on, because once again, this is Jimmy J's show. I don't go into anybody else's avenue and tell them how to do anything. And I don't appreciate when people come into my avenue and tell me how I should be doing things. But I'm going to move forward onto this conversation because it's so important. And I don't care how many laughs you put up there. I'm laughing at you too because you can't control me just like I can control you. And so with me having these conversations out here, it's so important that we make sure we address the black chamber, any chamber, Savannah area chamber, all these chambers, because you know why? The chambers are the ones who drive the economics in our community. And if we're not approaching those chambers to make sure the visible economics is actually being put out there, then we're just suffering. Yeah, you may have not told me, but then you just said, then why did you mention it? That's asking a question, and I answered your question, sir. And so with us moving forward, because I'm not going to even repeat anything else you put out here, because obviously you want to gain some attention, some conversation out of it. And so I'm going to leave it alone and let you challenge and talk of whatever you want to put out there. And I did not say you laughed. I just said when I said the comment to you, I saw the laughter come up on the top of the thing. If you keep up with Facebook, you'll understand that y'all can see how many eyes I got watching, and I can see all the comments that come across this show. And so that's why I said the laughter. But I never said Howard Spivey had laughed at me. And so if you want to, I'm sure that this show is going to be rebroadcast because that's what ATR does. We rebroadcast these shows over and over again to make sure that you get the conversation out there. And so, Howard, if you want to talk to me, you can call me anytime, man. You know you can talk to me anytime. 912-228-2205. Give me a call at 9 o'clock when this show is over and have any kind of healthy discussion you want to make sure out there. So now, back to my conversation because I want to make sure I get this clear. We as a people, and when I say we as a people, I'm talking to my African-American, black-owned businesses. We as a people, if we want to secure fair economics when it comes to the Black Chamber, when it comes to the Savannah Area Chamber, we have to join these organizations that drive economics in our community. And we have to give them our platform, our discussion, our pieces of legislature that we feel that's going to help benefit us as far as a group when it comes to the narrative of moving our narrative forward. Now, you know, if we're not willing to step up and have these courageous conversations, if we're not willing to make sure that we have black press, we have press that's going to put our agenda out there, our conversation out there, our pathways and everything out there, discussion wise, then we're going to keep losing. It's crystal clear that if we're not having the conversation and the discussions in our own community to address what our problems are and to make sure that what we need to see to change crime, to change unemployment, to change all those other issues that affect African American communities, then we're going to keep suffering and being at the bottom of the platform as far as what goes on. I applaud all those who want to interact with African American communities, and it's prevalent, and we understand that we can't solve the problems on our own. Sometimes we need those people who are willing to help and get involved in our communities. But there's a difference between helping our communities or taking over our communities and using them to their advantage, or taking advantage of our communities and using it to their advantage. And that goes for black, white, Puerto Rican, Chinese, Asian. Because black people can use black people just as bad as white people using black people. And so that's a conversation that needs to be had in our community. That's a conversation that we used to have in our community. And I will say this, the reason why, and I had a conversation at the chamber event, I had a conversation with a few younger African Americans, and a lot of reasons why younger African Americans don't intermingle with those older non-chamber organizations that are African Americanly driven, black churches, if you want to call it out, or small black businesses that are in our community that have sustained and survived all those years. A lot of young people, young African Americans, are not intermingling with older traditional African American culture, because you know what? They don't feel that they're a part of a culture that's moving the narrative and changing the environment. If you want to beat me up for that, beat me up for that statement. But if we're not willing to step forward as the older generation, including me, if we're not looking to be inclusive to get an understanding of how young African American entrepreneurs maneuver within this environment, if we're not giving them the platform that they need to be successful. And what I mean by that is, I don't say you do it my way or you ain't gonna get no support. We have to stop that mentality. We have to have the mentality of, we want to hear what you got to say. We want to see what you got to do. We want to make sure we're inclusive, and we want to make sure we push the narrative forward of African American owned businesses. And guess what? African American owned businesses cannot survive on black dollars. It has to survive on all dollars. It has to be dollars across the board. It has to be white dollars. It has to be green dollars. It has to be brown dollars and black dollars. And I said it first, it has to be green dollars. We can no longer say we got to have a black-owned business that's generating black-owned dollars and is working strictly for black people. We can no longer survive like that. We have to be an economic base that's actually principled as far as making economic dollars, period. To create jobs, to create infrastructure, to create challenges to city government, county government, and other government structures to say, hey, we need to invest in those people in black communities, because those are the people closer to understanding how we can get out of the conditions of crime, bad housing situations, unemployment, dropout rate, and all that good stuff like that. And I said the conversation the other day, I read to a group of kids this morning. When I read to a group of kids this morning, what I saw from pre-K, a group of pre-K kids was, what I saw with a group of pre-K kids was this. I saw a group of kids who were playing, laughing, enjoying life. And then I got a text message from another group of kids, 15, 16 years old, 10 years removed from the population I'm reading books to. And they're around here having guns made by 3D machines, getting them on for $99, $150, finding bullets to put in there, shooting up in the air in the same environment of these pre-K kids. And so what I'm seeing is where is the building blocks being broken at? Is it public school system? Is it city of Savannah? Is it Chatham County? Where are we missing the narrative at? Yes, I talked about the chamber, and the chamber is an economic force. It's supposed to be an economic force to the community. If it doesn't go past the existence of the RIN, then it's not serving the whole community. And that's something that, I don't have a problem talking to the chamber leadership. But right now, I just want to get my feet wet. And yes, the chamber does control too much politics and policy because you know what? They control the political leaders that make the narrative work. And if you look at, and my thing is, every person in Chatham County, Savannah, Georgia, across the United States of America, if you want to see how your legislators are working, it's public information. You can see how legislators put up bills, House bills, Senate bills. You can see how they put all those things out there. And guess what? A lot of that influence comes from economics. I don't blame the chamber. I blame economics. Chamber is just a flow system that makes it happen. Now, it's not going to change overnight. I can tell you that too. But my thing is this. Who's challenging the narrative of the control the chamber has is my question at hand. Who is the person challenging how the chamber has influence in this community? That's the question I ask. If we're not willing to ask those questions, if we're not willing to ask the questions of chamber, you're getting money from the city of Savannah, you're getting money from Chatham County, and we're not willing to challenge the city leaders in Savannah, we're not willing to challenge the leaders in Chatham County and say, hey, are y'all giving those opportunities? Are you challenging cities, municipalities? Are y'all giving the chamber what your list to serve is that matches the people you represent? That's a good question to ask. But if we're not asking those questions, we keep losing on the battle. And yes, if the teens are shooting in the air, yes, they're just shooting in the air, Howard. But guess what? Some of these teens are shooting at each other. It was a 14-year-old who died, who got shot by that gunshot that got shot in the air, and it went through the one floor into the next floor, and it killed the guy, and it shot him in the head. And yes, parents are part of the blame, but guess what? Parents can't be the whole blame, because if parents aren't bringing in equity or economics or the money to be able to be at home with their kids, I mean, what flow system are we creating? When I grew up in Chatham County, and I grew up on the south side, I didn't grow up in an impoverished community, so I'm not even going to try here and flex. But what sources do we have where a kid after school can go and play video games, can play with each other, have fun with each other in a structured environment? Where are these things at? We can blame parents all day long, but if a parent has to work 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day, and y'all thinking that, oh, parents are lazy, they sitting on their ass at home. No, it ain't. It's a lot of parents out here who are really trying to get their economics together. And yes, some of them getting the social activities shouldn't be getting involved to, and I can't even get into that conversation. However, if we're not trying to be equitably fair and even pay them a good wage where they can survive, then how can a parent be around? And a lot of times, now we're working with third-tier parents in some situations where that parent didn't get the training they need to get, but their parents. And so guess what? They don't even look at their activities being negative activity. And so I'm just going to be a realist. These are the problems that we actually got to deal with. And you're right. A major problem is low wages. And watch this. But the thing is, you can't ask the chamber to support higher wages if you're not in the chamber to ask them to support higher wages. And yes, I'm going to tell you straight up, the chamber's going to probably disavow or even talk bad about supporting higher wages. But if we're not in the chamber, how can you ask them to support higher wages? If you don't put enough people in that base to make sure you ask that question, how can you do that? And my thing is, if they're not, if the chamber's not tied to higher wages, why aren't we talking to the city of Savannah? Why aren't we talking to Chatham County? Because guess what? From what I heard, city of Savannah is increasing the wages to $15 an hour. Now, to me, is that a livable wage? Yes, maybe for a city employee, it's better than where you came from. But where are the conversations at on that? saying we appreciate you moving it to $15, but we need to move that thing to $22. Where $22 is really close to the wage gap. But then what's going to happen is every time you move the finish line, every time you feel like you can get to the finish line, they move the finish line. And so guess what? Now we see wages going up, but at the same time wages are going up, you seeing the price of goods going up too. So when are we going to conversate? When we'll have the conversation about how goods and services have been adjusted and changed out too. These are serious conversations we need to have. Gas prices. I done filled my car up. 2 times. Gas, I got a little car. I used to pay $25 to fill my car up 3 months ago. I paid $42 a day to fill my car up. So gas prices going up. I listened to the news. They say gas prices may be going up to $4.50. You know, what is this tied to? Where's this inflation coming from? Are these conversations being discussed? Now you adding more problems to a household. Now you adding more problems to a household to provide. How are we going to fix these problems? You work around them. $15 an hour is still poverty level, and I agree with you. But you know why the mayor is putting this out there? Do you know why city council is putting $15 an hour out there? Because the fact is, if they don't put $15, $16, $20 out there, then they're not going to be able to compete with the warehouses that are coming out here. And there's a lot of wages coming out with these warehouses where they're going to be competitive. You know, and so with these warehouses making the wages competitive, that $15 an hour, you're right, will be poverty level wages. And what's the cost of living? I talked to somebody the other day. The average cost to rent a 2-bedroom house, 2-bedroom apartment in Chatham County, $1,300, $1,400. Where are people going to live? Eventually downtown's going to have a problem because they ain't going to have a workforce that can afford to live in Chatham County. And then they already ain't working on fixing the bus system. So if the bus system is broke, then they can't even live out of town where they can afford to live somewhere place. And these are problems we have continuously. But we keep electing the crazy leadership that we keep buying and we keep putting in play. And so, hey man, there's a lot of issues, wraparound conversations that we need to address. But the first problem is we got to have people who are willing to step up and run for public office. You can't, these conversations about how two state reps hijacked a map from MPC. They hijacked a map from MPC and changed the whole directions as far as that's concerned. That's ludicrous. Why are they allowed to have that kind of power? It's ludicrous. And there's 8 people on that commission. There's 8 people on what you call the Chatham delegation. How is this possible that the map gets to change? And I feel for it. I saw the community. It's a community tied to the islands or over there by the islands. I saw the whole situation. It's important that we actually work toward doing what we got to do. And yes, property taxes on apartments have increased 30% last year. No rollbacks. So guess what? I had to jump up rent, and I get it. But when you jumping up rent, it's making it harder for people to be able to live in those corridors, to be able to provide the services that we need in the downtown corridor. And shouts out, John, I understand that these are conversations that we got to have. But my thing is this. Where is government in the assistance of making this thing work out well for everybody? Where is your county leaders? Where is your city leaders? Where are all the leaders at to make these things work out? I mean, I'm not here to pick on everybody, but guess what? Leadership demands respect of those people who they serve. And if they're not willing to talk to the people they serve, then shame on them. And that's not a castration on anybody out there who is an elected leader, because we have some good leaders, we have some bad leaders. We have some leaders who work fast. You got some leaders who work slow. You got some leaders who watch the heat meter to see where the conversation lies, and they don't move unless the conversation is a docile conversation where they can get out here and they can be mobile and talk to you and do with the conversation. We got to stop falling in love with leaders who only provide a resource for us at the moment when they get elected. We got to sit there. We got to stop that. And you're absolutely right. With 20 million going from the city to the chamber, I mean, those elected leaders are in that should be providing a pretty legislative agenda to the chamber to make sure that their voice is being heard. But the thing is, if the average Joe doesn't know what kind of revenue is being pushed around from county to city and city to county and city to chamber and chamber to city and city to chamber to county and county to chamber, then we're just having this conversation. And it's a good conversation. But with $20 million a year from the city going to the chamber, you got to expect either this. Watch this. If I gave $20 million, I'm sure, John, if you gave $20 million to the chamber from the city and you sat on city council, you going to give some directions of where you want that money to be directed to. But if you have a city council that's not pushing the narrative or pushing the agenda to make that narrative happen or make that narrative work, we just having a good candy conversation today. It's not on me. I'm not elected. I'm not in any kind of capacity of being elected. All I'm saying is $20 million coming from one entity to another entity, you will hope that you will want receipts of how you provide excess results to the entity that provided the $20 million. But I'm sure that the city gets away with it because most people on the city council may not understand that $20 million is being given or understand how that threshold of that $20 million is being given over there right there. And there's a membership fee because you know why? Membership fees keep certain people, certain groups out of joining certain bigger groups. And so I will put a membership fee out there too because you know what? Hey, it's not problematic. And guess what? Whether they're different or whether they understand, then those people on that city council need to get a hand on what needs to move the narrative forward. And if we don't do that, then guess what? We just have sitting ducks. And we're in year 2 of the city council. It's year 2, 19, 20, 22. We're in, 2021. We're in year 3 of the city council. And so all the babysitting is over. All the I don't know is over. Now it's time for city council to step up and take care of the city of Savannah. Okay, if you don't know what we need to take care of, we got a housing issue. We got a crime issue. We got shootings every single day. Every single day in Savannah, Georgia. We got a crime issue. We got a housing issue. We got a school issue in Chatham County. We got a social issue where we're not capitalizing on what needs to be done from this child from the 5th grade all the way up to the 12th grade. And yes, we put all that onus on the county school system, but that's a shared responsibility because the county school system is only responsible for that child from 7 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon in most respects. And guess what? If they just focus on 7 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon and in the city of Savannah and the county needs to pick up after 4 o'clock all the way up to that time when mama and daddy get home and making sure that their child gets those resources. Now, I'm going to ask a question. Where are the after-school resources in communities across Chatham County, across Savannah, Georgia, to actually mitigate against some of this crime that exists in our community? You know, where is the help agents like the library? Library is still closing at 6, 8 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're not being able to get what they need to get there. And you're right. And so basically, if we're not willing to challenge the system, if we're not willing to be infrastructure designers, where we're saying this is the best way we incubate the system, fix the problem as far as crime is concerned, we understand the tier of crime comes from XYZ. And we identify XYZ to make sure we create opportunities. And the beautiful thing about a municipality is they don't have to live by the rules like the county. The county has to enact legislature and laws and everything like that. And so it may take a year, 2, 3, 4 years before something on the county actually puts out there because we don't have unrestricted funding that the city and municipalities have. City of Savannah has a unlimited tap of unrestricted funds coming, and correct me if I'm wrong, coming from the water. Water does not have any restrictions. The money and revenue they collect from water fees or from those bills that y'all get, there's no restriction on that. Parking is sometimes the same thing. Parking is an issue. Parking is something we got to get into. Parking is something that's unrestricted funds. Where are these dollars going to? They're going into unrestricted accounts, and what are those unrestricted accounts being tapped for? We can talk about tourism and giving a blank check. And John, that's probably what one of your big issues. But as far as tourism is concerned, they're giving a blank check, but tourism doesn't exist if we don't have people making them beds, people in the restaurants cooking in them restaurants. What else we need? People at that front desk, people in the back washing dishes, people doing all those jobs that's down there. Tourism doesn't exist if those employees don't exist. And what's getting ready to happen is if Savannah doesn't come up with a model that fixes this problem, it's going to push those working class people further and further out in the community, and they're going to lose all those opportunities. You call them enterprise funds, I call them unrestricted cash. Same conversation. Enterprise funds are funds that you can actually tap into. There's no liquid. I mean, every now and then they put a tap on what that money goes to, but for the most part, those are unrestricted cash funds that can be used at the leisure of the governing body. And so, we call it enterprise fund. That's a cute name for it. But in most cases, those enterprise funds have no restrictions on it. And restriction is it's a capital that can be used for something specific. And enterprise funds, they probably out there probably listserv some things that they give that money to. So tell me where I'm wrong at, John. Please tell me where I'm wrong at. They don't have anything. Those cash flows don't have anything that they have to be restricted to. I mean, if I'm wrong, please get to typing and tell me how I'm wrong. Because enterprise funds, in my opinion, my book, I don't believe they have any kind of tap of where those dollars go at. And so do I need to send you a link so I can invite you in here so you can go ahead and explain to me how enterprise funds work? I have no problem doing that. We got 22 minutes. We got all the time in the world. I'll ask the producer to go ahead and invite you, and so we can have that conversation discussion about enterprise funds, because it is so important for us to understand the true nature of that. Unrestricted cash funds, there needs to be an outside audit. Misappropriation of funds is typical. Follow the money. And yes, Ramona, I hear you. And I'm waiting on John to finish his statement so I can read his statement live on this thing right here, because if I'm giving out misappropriated information, then hey man, let's clean me up now. But I don't see those enterprise funds being capital funds that are actually going to certain projects. They may be going to projects picked out by the city council, by the city manager, or whatever the case may be. But that money that's being collected through the water funds, I call it the water cooler fund, it is being directed into the wrong hands and the wrong assets. And so I'll wait on John to come back to that piece right there, because if I'm wrong, I'll be glad to come on here and say I'm wrong. But I don't see, my problem with this is I don't see, and I have not seen, and please y'all can tell city council, I asked for this. Please give me a outline of the enterprise funds or the water cooler fund or the unrestricted fund of what happens to all the revenue collected through all these projects to actually make these things happen. It got to be spent only on capital projects for parking or water and or sewer. I agree with you. They need to transfer profits into general funds. And yes, I stand corrected. You are absolutely right. It probably has something tied to capital projects, but I'm guaranteeing pretty much the same. Some of those capital projects can be shifted and into the language of understanding how that money can be used. And you're saying parking or water and sewer. Yeah, that can be twisted into a language where water and sewer can be accommodated in certain ways. And parking, the same conversation. You can do that parking conversation, because you gotta remember, parking up until about 2 or 3 years ago was a cash flow system. It's not a monitor system. It's not a computerized system. It's a cash flow system. That's why everybody says that certain city officials are taking in on the take and put money in their pocket. So I'll yield to the conversation as far as capital projects for parking and water and sewer. I'll do my own research. Me and you, John, let's have lunch. And if I'm dispelled wrong, I'll make sure I come on here and make sure I give that candid conversation. But I'm almost certain, even though it's for capital projects, it's an unrestricted fund that's funding capital projects. But I'll put a pin in that conversation to make sure. And y'all people, tune in to future conversations, because we'll talk about that. They building parking garages, and the profits for the parking goes right back into the enterprise account. Let's do it, and I got you, my brother. So we've already talked about the chamber. We talked about getting out the vote. We talked about the unrestricted funds, enterprise funds, and all those all those other things like that. I still would like to see, whether it's an enterprise fund, unrestricted fund, whatever it is. I would still like to see where that cash flow and how that cash flow works with the water and sewer, because I get a lot of conversation from people who say that their bill is $500 and they ain't even been in their house, and then 2 months later they're in their house and using all the water up, and they only getting the bill for $50. So we got to come see with some kind of conclusion on that. I've heard from people who had $6,000 bills, and then I heard people out here where I live at, we don't really have any water bills at all. And I know we use more water in this house where I'm at right now versus the house I came from that's in Savannah, Georgia. And so understanding the makeup of how that water and sewer thing works is probably a conversation I need to bring somebody on the table who can explain that conversation. And what I'll do is I'll reach out to those people who work in those environments so I can get the true story. And I want to talk to somebody from the lower level who deals with water and sewer and how it's developed and picked up and everything like that. And I want to talk to somebody at a high level who has a full understanding, a grasp of that conversation of how that actually works. And so with that being said, I'm going to close out on that conversation. The last piece of conversation I want to go back and loop on is I want to talk about, and I want to close out strong on this, the election piece, as far as making sure that we understand after next week Friday, this is a public service announcement, after next week Friday, if nobody qualifies against all these candidates you hate, I'm putting this public service announcement out there now. If it's a candidate you don't like and nobody qualified against them, I don't give a damn what party they're part of. If a candidate you don't like and nobody qualified against them, I don't want to hear jack from you about what that person's not doing. I'm not hearing it. If I find out that you're complaining about the person and you live in that person's district, I'm going to cut the conversation and I'm going to walk away from you. You know why? Because I'm tired of people complaining. I'm tired of people talking about people. And no, Howard, I'm not running. I have a 75-year-old father who is really sick, and I just don't have the time to get away from him, my brother. If I did, I would, but I don't have the time. I've already worked on getting him in my community. And it's a lot of other factors tied to it. And if you come to me with the reason like that, I agree with you. But what you're not going to hear a lot from me is I'm not going to do a lot of complaining about people if I had the opportunity to run and I did not run. Because you know why? I cannot complain. Now, I'm going to complain about the county commission because I ran for the county commission 2 years ago. So I'm going to complain about that because I ran for that seat. So if you come to me and he don't do right, I'm going to complain about him. If he do right, I'm going to praise him too. So I want that understood. I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to that stuff. But let me tell you again, next week, Friday, at 12 o'clock, that's when qualifying ends. It starts Monday. It's 9 to 4 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. And then Friday is 9 to 12. This is statewide. This is federal. This is local. If you choose to run for public office, this is the time to do it. If you're tired of the people running and represent you, this is the time to do it. I'm tired of the B and C's, and y'all know what the B's and C's. I'm tired of that. If you're tired of the representatives you have, run for public office. But if you complain about it next week, I'm going to ask, why aren't you running? And your answer is similar to something that's related to BS, I'm not even going to talk to you no more. Because I'm tired of people complaining. And some people who complaining have some BS excuses why they can't run. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It's so important that if you really want to change government structure, I don't care what party you are part of, if you don't like the leadership, replace them. I learned a long time ago, if you don't like the people, I'm sorry, if you can't change the people, change the people. And what that means is, if you can't change the people who serve you, then change the people who serve you. If they're not doing a good job serving you, then replace them. Take the time, take the aim, replace them. I wish I could run for public office. I talk to my wife about it all the time, about running for public office. But right now I'm in a different place, and you can't hold me hostage to that, because I didn't step to the gate and I done ran before. I didn't try before. And my thing is, I want you to understand this from my heart. When I tried, that means I took a sacrifice from working in the establishment of what I wanted to work for, because it would keep me away from being able to do what I got to do. I've done that. I've done the sacrifice for my family. I've done the sacrifice for my family to be a political leader within the party structure. I've done the sacrifice. I've done the 6 years of sacrifice. Nobody can tell me anything. I'm in 8 years now of sacrifice. I've done the whole political structure of everybody hates me because I won't endorse this candidate, and everybody loves me because I endorse this candidate. I done been through that. It's time out for me on that. And my thing is, I'm in a different place. But don't come to me complaining about running for about somebody who's going to be in public office, and next week you didn't qualify against that person. Because all the positions out there are easy to qualify. They're easy instructions. It's easy to do. If you qualifying locally for the Board of Election seats, those go through the county. Those go through the office of the CCDC. Those go through the office of the Republican office. If you and I think the Republicans probably doing theirs at the Board of Elections. It's that easy. Board of Election seats, the only seat that's local when it comes to county. There are no municipality seats because there's no special elections. So you don't have nothing there. So all we got left is state seats, which is your state rep seats, your state senate seats. Those seats right there are up for game. Up for game. And if you think somebody's not qualified to represent you, run for office. I'm not stopping you. I don't think nobody's stopping you. If you're worried about people talking about you, you worried about people asking you questions, then guess what? Stop asking questions about the people who represent you. Because we got enough people out there complaining about the people who are in office. I need some people who are going to get on the ballot and run. Because guess what? They're waiting for y'all not to run for office. So after the 11th, and watch this. Howard, John, y'all done commented more than anybody else tonight. Y'all watch this. After next week, there will be certain people who will be unopposed, and they going to act all kind of brand new the following week when it comes to the local delegations. I called it out right now. I called that out right now. There will be some people who will not have any opposition, and after the 11, when they realize they ain't got no opposition, they going to act all kind of funky toward everything goes on. I'm calling it out right now. I'm calling it out right now. There will be some people who will not have opposition, and they're going to act all kind of funky. Not next week, but the following week. St. Patrick's Day week, they're going to act all kind of funky. And this is how the world turns. This is how everything operates. And so if we want to change this narrative, we got to change the narrative. There are people that are coming from Atlanta. Most of your elected folk who want to run the whole state come out of Atlanta. Those people are coming down to Savannah, Georgia, because you know why? Savannah, Georgia is the biggest market outside of Metro Atlanta. The goal is to make sure that Charleston all the way up to Chatham County becomes one united front, where out of Savannah, Georgia, we become the marketplace for getting the politics out there to the community. That conversation has been in Glenn County for a long, long time. Because you know why? Glenn County is the place where all the economics really rules in the 1st Congressional District. All the money mostly comes out of Glenn County. And so that's why Glenn County has been the purse. But the things are changing now. Where guess what? Social media, lives like this, live streams like this, social media, all kind of other avenues out there are making it clearer for candidates who may not have the revenue streams they need to run for public office, but they now have the media media outlets to actually get their message out there into the world. And so it's so important that we make sure that this message right here transpires out into our full community to actually make everything happen. And yes, we got to fire them up, because if we don't fire them up, we're going to keep losing out on these opportunities. And so thank you, Joyce, for putting that out there. It's so important that we actually fire them up and get them ready to roll and roll to the polls was what we need to do. And traditionally speaking, for those people who don't understand, In this election cycle, the primary election cycle, last time we had this cycle, 19% of the voting registration population actually showed up to the polls. So 20%, less than 20%, made the difference at who the leadership was on the school board. On the school board. So 5 of 9 members, the controlling interest of the school board, was decided by less than 20% of the total voting population. And so when you don't get good school board representation, or you don't get good school board opportunities and conversations, you can't get mad at that representation. And the first point is you got to have people who run on the ballot that's going to actually invigorate and make those people actually get to the polls and actually run for public office. It's time out for us sitting back, waiting for somebody to deliver who ain't delivered for 16 years, who ain't delivered for 20 years, who ain't delivered in 26 years. It's time out waiting on people to deliver who've been skipping your house every time they've been living in the newspaper anyway. And so we have to make sure good information, like Margot said, good information gets out there and flows. And it's so important for us to make sure that we're delivering and we're not waiting for expectation for somebody to give you an answer. And so I'm coming to a close. I got about 4 minutes left to have this discussion. But it's so important that we show up, not to the polls on the 24th, but we show up to the qualifying to ensure we have the right group of people willing to represent us. Because guess what? I'm gonna go back to the chamber conversation. When the chamber actually pushes whatever it needs to push, they're pushing it to the elected officials that get elected on November the 8th. So whether it's their friends, my friends, or your friends, if we don't run for public office during the qualifying period, step up and qualify, and then once we qualify, we get on the ballot for May 24th, and then we get past May 24th, and we get solidified November the 8th, we just whistling Dixie. I'm tired of us complaining and having negative conversations behind closed doors, and we have an opportunity to step up and get on the ballot. And my conversation next week Friday is, I'm just going to have a congratulatory party for those people who did step up to the mic and actually run for public office, no matter what their history is, no matter what their background is, whatever the understanding is, because it's so important for you to step up and run. And next week, once again, next week is the only time you can get forward to qualify. Now, you can do that signature thing, but it's so dang stupid for you to go out there and get 2,000 signatures, 4,000 signatures, 50,000 signatures, when you can just join one of the parties and actually put your name on the ballot and actually make it through a primary and get on the ballot to make sure you run in November. It's too easy. But if we're not willing to step forward and do so, then we're just going to keep calling spade a spade. And yes, some of these situations where incumbents have been there for a long time and sometimes for a short time, yes, they control the narrative. They call the shots and everything like that. But if you're not willing to come at them and charge them and run against them, then my thing is, don't talk about them. If you're not willing to step in the gate to do what's right, to challenge them, don't talk about it. If you're not willing to do what's right for the community, and what's right for the community is stepping up by faith and run against these people, don't talk about it. Because the only way we're going to replace these people, y'all can send emails, conversations, calls, and everything like that. These people realize when they locked and loaded in these seats, they don't give a dang about your email, they don't care about your phone call, and they don't care about anything else. Because in their minds, nobody is going to challenge them, and nobody's going to run against them. And so nobody's going to change the narrative. And so I'll close out on that piece right there, because it's so important for us to step forward. Qualifying is next week. I done said it 6 times tonight. Qualifying is next week. Qualifying is next week. If you ever thought about running for public office, now is the time to qualify to do it. Have the courageous conversation with your family. Have the courageous conversation with your friends, those people in your inner circle, because you're going to need some people to pray with you, and you're going to need some people to deliver for you. But what I will tell you right now is you're going to have courage to run, and you can't be afraid to ask people for money. You can't be afraid to ask people for help, and you can't be afraid to lead and serve people. And so with that being said, Mr. Producer, I'm counting it down. We got about 3 minutes left. I don't see any questions in the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat. I appreciate those people who willingly came forward. Howard, John, Margot, Joyce, the other John. I appreciate y'all entertaining my conversation. John McMasters, I appreciate you coming back and forth with me, making sure you keep me straight, keep me energized and focused. And this is a conversation just like impact fees we need to be talking about on a regular basis. We need to be talking about why aren't we getting money off them ports when them freight comes into the plat. These are good conversations that we really, really need to have. And guess what? If we're not willing to have these and Howard, you don't even remember me. When I was a young man, I came into your office and you taught me the whole structure of how we need to do businesses with EIN numbers and tax numbers and everything like that. And I was floored and applaud with you. So shouts out, Howard. I always been a big fan of you, and you don't even know who I am, and that's sad. But you know what? I'm a former county commissioner. I'm Googleable, and Howard, believe it or not, I have always been an admirer of you, and I'm glad you took the time to spend an hour with me. And I'll be glad to have a conversation with you anytime. My number is 912-228-2205. And I got to get off of here, y'all. I appreciate the conversation. Peace. Mr. Producer, take us out, brother.